Welcome to MC Square Podcast. This is episode number 41, and we've got some great local topics today we're going to discuss. Let's go.
World to see and all the time to learn.
All right, we are back, and Andrew, I hear that you're internet famous.
Well, actually, we were talking before we started recording, and both of us actually had quite
I forgot about mine.
Both of us had quite a week in the media.
I mean, I think yours is a little bit.
Well, you got your picture in the paper,
But
and you
what
spoke at a
paper
huge
is
forum.
it? What paper is it?
Yeah, it's one nobody reads. That's okay. It's the paper though. So the paper. Newspapers
they read it when they lay it down for the cat to urinate on it.
Well, anyway, it's pretty cool. And you were in front of a bunch of politicians and movers and shakers in Terre Haute and talking about, well, we can talk about that a little bit later, but had something to do with the hospital. And mine was totally, I got to be honest, it was totally took me by surprise. But I wrote a little piece on well, actually, let's do this. Because we did this on the last video, which got a lot of good response from having Pastor Jeremy Touchet here.
Oh, yeah.
Touchet, sorry.
Yeah.
It looks like Touchet, sorry.
Yeah,
but
Touchet.
It was a great interview, had a great response from it. And we've got more guests coming up. We had one scheduled for today, and this person had to reschedule, so they'll be coming up next. And then we asked somebody else, and they who who knows who they are, and they were going to come on, and they have other things to take care of. But so that's okay. We got a lot to talk about, but let's do this. If you're watching right now and you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, would you please pause and go subscribe?
You don't have to pause to subscribe.
Pause.
You don't have to
subscribe.
pause. You can actually click it without
If you're
pausing.
old like me and you don't know how to work the YouTube,
subscribe.
Just like the video and subscribe. We said that early on in the last video, and I think that worked. I think we got a lot more subscriptions pop up from that.
It gives us a little bit of creative energy.
Well, I feel like
I don't know.
What gives
Not
us
really.
creative energy? Having
subscriptions.
Well, I feel like that what happens is people are like tuning in, and then they don't like the content they are watching to the end.
They don't subscribe.
They aren't subscribing. So we need more subscriptions. Anyway, so back to what we were talking about. So I wrote a piece on Andrew. So yeah, and then I have if you want to catch up with me, and I do a post about each podcast, and it sends out an email so you can subscribe for free. It's all for free. AndrewTMcNeil.com. AndrewTMcNeil.com. So I wrote a piece called Indiana Property Taxes on April 30th, and you got to know, I'm very inconsistent. I write when I feel like writing, and this got under my skin. The whole assessment thing, the property tax assessments that's come out, and just people were freaking out, and rightfully so. So I wrote this little piece and sent it out, and a day later, thanks to Rob Kendall at Kendall and Casey, Indianapolis, #1 radio talk show in Indiana. Well, that's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. And he shared it from my Facebook and also posted it on X. And anyway, it just went crazy. So I had about almost 1,000 people read it, which may not sound like much, but that's a lot for me. So, anyway, it's pretty cool. So it's a very, very hot topic right now. So I thought we would talk a little bit about it, because I followed up with that with a meeting that the Republican Party held this past Saturday with the local assessor. And what's the assessor? Kevin Gardner.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this guy's he's a Democrat, and I got to tell you, kudos to him, because he came to a meeting that was nothing but angry Republicans, and he very patiently and answered every question. I thought he did a fantastic job. And so basically, so the premise of go read the article on my website. I'm not going to read it here. That's goofy. But if you want to know what I said, go read it there. But the basic premise was the state house, the legislature is failing us. They knew this large assessment was coming up. They reluctantly passed property tax reform. They kind of were forced into it. They did what they normally do when there's an issue they don't really want to deal with, and they kind of make it into a mess. And that's actually what's happened. They supposedly was a tax cut, but they didn't really. It's not locked in, so it doesn't mean that they can't raise property tax rates. It doesn't mean that, and then they allowed the local communities to raise income taxes. So, because they want to cover all this, lost income they think they're going to have by giving us all $300 a piece. But so anyway, in a nutshell, the state a couple of years ago really was pushing for the assessments to be more market based. Mm-hmm. So they really want the assessment that you get, and most of you have probably got it. I'm trying to see where mine's at. So you get a little piece of paper in the mail, and it's not a tax bill, but it's a note of assessment, and it tells you what your previous assessment was, and it gives you a new assessment, and it breaks it down by land and structures and gives you a total. And everybody's has gone up. And most folks between 20 and 40%. I mean, just a really big jump. So the state was wanting our assessments to be more market-based. So basically, as close as they could get it to being what you could get on the open market if you were to sell your home. Mm-hmm. And for years and years and years, they were using a vendor to give the value of the materials and give the value of replacing your home. It just ended up with numbers across the board, and has for years and years and years, that were way below what you would get if you sold it. And I've always known that. I mean, people get mad when the assessment goes up, but I'm still like, well, yeah, but it's still well below what you could get if you put it on the market.
Yeah.
So they switched to a new vendor, and the vendor's name is Marshall and Swift, and it's the same vendor that real estate agents use and insurance companies use for replacement value or for valuing your home. So there's a lot of factors. I'm not going to go into his whole presentation, but it was very fascinating. The state did this. They mandated that. They mandate how the assessments are done, and they mandate how close those assessments have to be to real property values or real market values. So you have that coupled. Everybody knew that was coming. All these legislators should have known it was coming because they're the ones that forced this to happen. And then we also had, due to COVID money, due to lack of supply in the real estate market, just a real inflationary pressure on home prices. Mm-hmm. So you couple those two things together, and you just have a lot of pressure on your next assessment was going to be really high. Mm-hmm. So that's why you had a lot of pressure, political pressure, being put on Micah Beckwith and Mike Braun to deal with this in this campaign, this last campaign. Yeah. Hey guys, we're going to have this wave of higher assessments. Doesn't necessarily mean higher taxes. And the assessor has nothing to do with your higher tax rate. So then, and the folks have been making this point, and they're also true. So the state laid this groundwork for this to happen. They knew it was going to happen, and they didn't deal with the issue. They did not deal with it. They didn't fix it. But on the other side of this, the flip side of it is that your county councils put together a budget. And this budget is what property taxes are based on. Oh. So if they spend out of control, your property taxes are going to go up. So if you have higher property taxes, which we do in Vigo County, and I don't have the number right here, but we're like in an island of high property taxes. It is because your local government is spending too much, and they are not living within their means. So it's kind of a catch-22. Is it the state legislature's problem and fault? I would say yes, because but they would respond, and they have responded. Hey, go to your local government and ask them for a tax cut. Tell them to live within their means. Tell them to live on a lower budget, and your tax rates will go down. You'll have less property taxes. And both are true. So it's just a mess.
That's so interesting. So these property taxes, do they stay local or do they go to the state? The state
100%
distributes.
is local. 100%.
Local, not the city, but the county.
The county, not one penny goes to the state.
So, all right. So then there is the bill that was just passed. You were saying that's $300 that comes out and says the tax relief bill, property tax relief bill, which is from the current administration that says property owners get 10% back on their property taxes up to $300. So if they're going to raise the assessments, therefore raise the taxes, wouldn't we be getting that back anyway? Because we didn't get the 10% back prior.
No, so it's kind of smoke and mirrors a little bit, because ultimately they can raise the tax rate to meet their ballooning budgets, or let you take a little bit of a cut on the property taxes. And the same bill allowed local governments to raise your local income tax to make up the difference.
So they pushed it back into the local, essentially they pushed it back into the local governments.
Well, it always was.
Okay.
But they kind of removed the restrictions for local income tax increases.
There were restrictions on those?
Apparently there were, because it's part of this bill. Like I said,
Do we have to vote on that?
It's a huge bill.
Do we have to vote on those?
Nope.
No?
Nope, but your local... So this is why we were going to have a county councilman on with us to kind of talk about that side of it, because there is a out-of-control spending side, and the sad thing is the Republicans are in the majority here in Vigo County. We have all three commissioners' offices, and we have the majority on the county council, and still spending is out of control. There's very little willpower, it seems, to say, do we really need this? Is this necessary? Can we find ways of cutting? And instead, it's just it feels like it's just a constant constant ask, more and more money. So I think we're going to have some political costs to pay for this, because people are not going to be happy when their tax bills, even if they see their property taxes stay stable, but their local income taxes, their overall tax burden goes up, and they know it. I do think that there's going to be repercussions, and unfortunately, I mean, in our area, what party are you going to pull that's going to help you? You're going to have to find individuals it's going to have to be within the Republican Party, because no Democrat ever cuts spending anyway. But Republicans aren't any better. They're in office. They're in the supermajority in the House and the Senate, and we cannot get serious tax reform. In fact, they passed a budget. What they do in this last budget?
Yeah, so when they did the budget assessment, we were at 2.4 billion behind in revenue for 2 years.
Right.
And so their fix for it, which I'm not a big fan of this at all. I mean, I'm a respiratory therapist, still not a fan of it, is 2% tax on tobacco.
Right.
And so, not 2%, $2. $2 on tobacco.
Yeah, not 2%.
Not 2%, no, $2, which is significant. And so that's going to make up $800 million of the $2.4 billion over 2 years.
Right.
So, some people are calling it a sin tax. I don't like to go there with that. There's people that are highly addicted to these different things. It's really hard to quit. And I don't know that the resources are really good enough right now to help people, because nicotine, tobacco is addictive as heroin. It's very addictive. And so you're going to add that, you're going to get that cost from someplace else to help to pay off the out of control spending.
Yeah.
And so it goes back to making the people pay in the end.
Right.
But the people that don't use tobacco and that, they'll be like, yeah, that's a great idea. Maybe they'll quit. And maybe it will cause people to have that change of mindset. But the majority of people are just going to live less below their means than they already do.
Yeah.
So then are you then separating farther the poverty level from the middle income? Are you making bigger
Well, and
gaps
here's the
in
thing.
there?
So the money is specifically earmarked. That tobacco tax, the money is specifically earmarked to go into what? It goes in. They've got it earmarked for something. I'm trying to remember what it was.
Yeah,
Do you
but
remember?
it's not into
health services.
tobacco cessation.
No.
No, it's not into that. And that in the past it was.
Is it Medicare? I think it's Medicare.
Yeah, it's Medicaid.
Medicaid. Yeah. So
let me see.
So here's the quandary that you have. First of all, and those of you who followed along with Rush Limbaugh and talking about the big, I don't know if there was the big tobacco wars back in I feel like it was the early 2000s or the 90s. I don't remember when they made this huge deal. Remember that settlement with all the states, Philip Morris and all that? Yeah, Rush did a great job of breaking that down. And that was the same thing. All that tobacco money, what was it going to go for? It was going to go for helping the children and health care and all this stuff. So then you're conflicted.
Because you want to help the children.
So should we start smoking to help the children? Should we stop smoking because smoking's bad? I don't.
Yeah.
What signal are we sending here?
You.
So should we increase our tobacco buying because it's going to help Medicaid, or should we stop smoking because that's bogus. That whole thing is bogus because actually all the taxes go into a pot. They really do, regardless. I mean, it's just. And they're going to go wherever they want them to go. But they tag that little Medicaid thing on there so that you feel better about it, meaning they're going to put $800 million or whatever it is into Medicaid.
Medicare, I think.
Okay. What's troubling is that, and I kind of talk about this in the little piece that I wrote, what's troubling is we have seen here locally and statewide a real evolution in the Republican Party away from the party of Ronald Reagan, which, I mean, there's a lot of folks alive today that don't even remember Ronald Reagan, but the party of cutting spending and cutting taxes, limited government and cutting taxes, that to me has always been what conservatism, what republicanism has always been about. Something you can be very proud of. You can hang your hat on that economically, and on the social side of it, you can hang your hat on being against abortion and being pro-family and all of the basic traditional family values. That's kind of the what in a nutshell what the Republican Party was meant to be, or what we've come out of. Not anymore. I'm telling you, these guys are out of a mold where they can't raise taxes fast enough. There's not. I mean, it was no sooner announced that we had a budget deficit in the coming years, a shortfall, than these guys, man, they popped up a tobacco tax and they slapped that sucker on and it was passed. It was the fastest tax increase I've ever seen. And it's honestly, they don't want to cut taxes. They don't want to cut property taxes. They don't want to cut income taxes. They don't want to cut any taxes. In fact, they're fine with raising them. And then on the flip side of that, we don't see them cutting. We don't see them cutting any spending. This is local. This is commissioners. This is council, city council, county councils, all across the state, not just Vigo, and in the state legislature. And we're not seeing any kind of fiscal conservatism. So then I'm scratching my head and wondering, what does the Republican Party stand for? Jimmy, do you know? I mean, what's their core principle that when you say the difference between a Republican and a Democrat is this? What is it?
I don't know. I'm troubled by that too. I don't have a good answer for it.
It's very honestly, it's very irresponsible locally. Irresponsible. There needs to be, and there are a few good people, but honestly, as a party, there's this mentality that the money is theirs. It isn't the taxpayers. There doesn't seem to be any kind of serious reverence for taxpayer dollars. That is not your money.
Okay, so maybe
that's like 2 cents there.
Yeah, but maybe this is the feeling. This is the feeling that they have the answers. Maybe they have this answers and ability that they feel like they have that they can fix the problem if the money's in their hands versus the money being in our hands. And so, what is that from? Is that from
elitism? It's elitism.
It is,
and that's really what you run into a lot.
Yeah,
it's on both sides of the aisle. But here's the problem: we have a supermajority in the House and the Senate in Indiana. The Democrat Party almost doesn't exist. Now we have a Democrat mayor, and I'm not happy about that. Because they're terrible on crime, and I don't know where we're going to be in 4 or 5 years, 6 years down the road. We'll watch it closely, but it generally, Democrat mayors, Democrat city government does not bode well for the city long term. You just don't see good fruit out of it. However, apart from that, Jimmy, I mean, the Republicans run this state and have for a while.
Yeah, and yeah.
I mean, it's not a disaster on crime. It's not a disaster, socially. It's not all bad. But there is a very troubling trend where they just love to spend, and I think it's just that power, power corrupts, and ultimate power corrupts ultimate, or what is it, whatever that saying was. I just butchered it, but the heart of the matter is that power corrupts, and I think that's what we're seeing. These folks have nothing to worry about when it comes around election time. We have no choices.
Yeah.
I mean, who are you going to put in? You're going to have to primary them, and the party has the power, the money, the machine behind them. You don't have a chance.
Do you think that the people that are elected in these positions, maybe they just don't have the knowledge of what it takes? And do you think they're just going with what has been done in the past, or maybe not even social norms, but the norms, like, are they just following suit of what Braun is doing?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm not going to say Beckwith, but Braun. Are they following suit from what Braun's doing? So they don't want to tick off the governor, so they kind of just follow suit in that way, but nobody has that deep down inside of them, that knowledge that says, or, that just says, this isn't right, and I'm willing to stand up for it and look different.
I think there are definitely some people out there that do that. And there's even people locally. I mean, there really is. We haven't called out the big spenders by name. I'm not going to call out the folks that are standing up by name either. So, but the truth is, it is there. What's troubling is the overall trend of the party and the party leadership. So you have, to your point, say you have a great rep or a great senator, state goes to the state house. The party leadership, which is bought and paid for by the Indy Chamber, and they're bought and paid for by Eli Lilly, and they're bought and paid for by these massive corporations. There just are huge lobbying firm, lobbying dollars into the coffers. The leadership is bought and paid for by lobbying dollars, and they run those legislatures. They run them. Yeah. Your bill, if it's not what they want to see, it'll never see the light of day.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, so some positive to that.
Yeah.
In the recent bills passed at the state, they were pretty tough on these pharmacy benefit managers.
Yeah.
And that is the middleman inside of that pharmaceutical that's manipulating all that. And so they were really tough on that, because that is mainly because of our president has been tough on that. And so that kind of falls down. So maybe there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Like, this is going to...
I don't think it's all bad. I do think there was definitely a lot of good legislation that got passed.
Yeah.
I mean, there really was. There was some great stuff. Fiscally, I'm not happy. Overall, I mean, they passed one, something to do supporting ICE and the deportation of illegals. I mean, I love it. A lot of this stuff that's been passed, and I mean, there's, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bills that got passed. Really good stuff. Andrew Ireland is a new state rep. He's not our rep, but I wish he was. He's excellent. And I kind of joked with him a little bit on X, because Braun has signed into law, I think, like 5 of his. He's a freshman state rep, and he's written like a bunch of laws. Now, in I think he worked for years. I don't know his full story, but he worked for years as an attorney. He's an attorney. He worked for years within the government writing bills and writing policy. So he hit the ground running, knew exactly what he was wanting to do. But his stuff is just excellent, just really, really good. So there are folks like that, and they know what to do, they know how to do it, and they're getting some the ball moving in the right direction. It's just that, honestly, cutting spending and keeping taxes low and cutting taxes it should be the mantra that every Republican chairman, every Republican party in this entire state of Indiana needs to preach this to their candidates.
Yeah.
This is who we are. I mean, we can disagree on a lot of things, but this is kind of it's the core of the character of the Republican Party.
Yeah.
We should be responsible government. People should be able to trust us with their money. That we're not going to waste it. Anyway, I'm off my soapbox, but I did want to. There was an informal survey, and I'm gonna ask you this because this is kind of interesting.
Okay.
So there were about 830 people. They responded. This was Indy Politics. This is run by Abdul Hakim Shabazz or whatever, the attorney out of Indianapolis. So he's kind of partnered with Kendall and Rob Kendall, and he's big in the Indianapolis area. He's run for Indianapolis mayor last time, I think. But anyway, he's got a kind of a political organization. He did a little informal survey, and it was here was the results.
Right-leaning, left-leaning?
He is
Center?
moderate Republican.
Okay.
Yeah, moderate Republican is how I would put him. 63% of you thought the state was headed in the wrong direction. And again, this just happened. This survey just happened. So this is in the wake of all these assessments that have come out.
63%.
Yeah.
Okay.
70% disapproved of the job Mike Braun was doing as governor.
Well, he hadn't been in very long, but yeah. 70.
That's pretty significant. Although
70 is pretty bad.
54% disapproved.
Disapprovals. Wow.
Yeah, disapproved the job Michael Beckwith was doing. So 54% disapproval for him. 80% disapproved of the job Diego Morales was doing as Secretary of State. Which he's had some issues. There's no doubt about it. 6-figure income for his brother-in-law, and I mean, it's just some things. I don't know. 38% disapproved of the job Todd Rokita was doing as Attorney General. So you could kind of look at that as more of like a 60% approval rating. So Todd Rokita's in the clear. He's doing well. 81% disapproved of the job lawmakers did this past session, and that is primarily going to be on that property tax bill. People are very upset about that. 85% disapproved of the job lawmakers did regarding property taxes. So let's just spoke to that. 57% blamed the property tax crisis on state and local governments. Well, that's it. I mean, where else would it go? Who's the 43% and who are they blaming?
Blaming it on.
That's all that's involved is the state and local
They probably
governments.
blame it on Trump.
Yeah, maybe. That's weird.
Yeah.
61% believe property taxes should be eliminated, which is actually what I believe this 100%. The property taxes are fundamentally the most un-American tax that we have. You are paying the same tax on a piece of property over and over and over again. And theoretically, and it's not theoretically because it does happen, you can lose this property if you fail to pay those taxes. So eventually, the government can tax you out of all your money and then take your property. And that's just not right. I mean, it's not a fair system. 66% of respondents believe property taxes should be replaced with sales tax. Yep, I'm fine with that. 43% thought local and county governments should look at consolidation. Now, that's below the majority thought that. So that's a completely split. Nobody knows on that. I actually don't like consolidation, but...
Consolidation of?
Well, it says local and county governments.
So
well, it would probably be looking
Unigov.
at... Well, yeah, so it'd be looking at your township trustees going away and some of that stuff.
Yeah, so...
Yeah.
Well, for a county, so they've done that, in Fort Wayne?
Did it go okay?
I don't know. I'm not sure how it's gone, but I know they talked about that in this area before because the people outside the city and in the rural areas of the county don't like it, but it would consolidate the money that comes because the county gets a lot more state money than the city does. And
Right.
so I think the people inside the city would I mean, you're talking about your police, your fire, and all those different things.
Consolidating.
They would like the Unigov option because more of the county, and when you start talking about county, you start talking about all the farmers with all their property and their taxes, then all kind of.
Yeah.
But in that case, then you would really have to use those services to cover the county.
Right.
You couldn't just cover the city with them.
Right.
So then you're going to add costs there.
Yeah. I'm up to. I would leave that up to the voters. I don't really care that much.
Yeah.
55% thought township government should be eliminated. And that's kind of what I was talking about. So that's your township trustees. There's a lot of waste there. I've heard arguments on both sides, but mostly the arguments I've heard have been that there's just a lot of waste with township trustees, and a lot of potential for fraud, so embezzlement. 70% thought marijuana should be legalized.
70?
Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
we really are going to pot.
Yes. Bad joke. 70%.
53% disapproved of the job their school board was doing, so that's 50-50. 75% supported school choice and universal vouchers,
Yeah.
and 70% identified as Republicans or conservatives. So that's just letting you know the breakdown of the, of the
so
poll.
there's a lot of Republicans.
So it's not scientific. They're going to work on getting a scientific one later on this year. I think it's a small snapshot. You can't read too much into it. But I do think it means that probably there's a sizable amount of the base, and definitely with this article I wrote taking off like it did, and there was tons of comments. People were agreeing with me, very upset with the state legislature. I think it hit a nerve, and here's why I think Braun's it's a self-inflicted wound, because Braun could have vetoed that bill and he could have gotten a better bill. And I think that's what people are upset about. Is that you went in here with this property reform, he went to a rally, he was part of the people, and then nobody liked what was coming out of the legislature, and he could have totally vetoed it, forced them to go back and redo it, and he didn't. So I think it's a self-inflicted wound. I think the problem with it staying around, because think about it, you pass a bill people don't like, you got 3 more years of your term, nobody's going to remember this in 3 years.
Yeah.
However,
Better do it at the beginning.
However, they will with property taxes. Every time you get your assessment or you pay your property taxes, if that
When that shows
bill
up.
goes up, people are going to be mad every single time. So I do think it's something that they're probably going to have to look at the next legislative session. I do think they will do something. Hopefully it's better than what they've done in this past one. I just think there's so many people upset about it. I don't think it's going to go away.
So let me give a little bit of a different perspective.
Yes, sir.
And then you can chew it up and you can tell me I'm crazy if you think. Let's think of a kingdom perspective.
Okay.
All right. So, what was Jesus' thought on taxes?
Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and unto God what is God's.
Yes.
Yes.
So, where do we go with that?
I think Jesus would be conservative. What did he tell the disciples about taxes? He said,
Yeah.
you tax foreigners, you don't tax the citizens. He said, so we're free. However, lest we offend the Pharisees, because this was, go throw the hook in the lake, pull out the fish, and find the coin to pay the temple tax.
Yeah.
So I think that what taxation really comes down to, and I am not against taxes. We have to have taxes. That's how our governments are funded. Mm-hmm. But taxation is a level of slavery. And when your money is a level of freedom, because it frees you up to do what? It frees you up to go where you want to go, buy what you want to buy, live where you want to live. I mean, if money is no option, you're able to eat what you want to eat. It's all freedom. All these choices that you get to make. The more money you have, the more choices you get to make. The more the government encroaches on that with taxation, it takes away your freedom. And, well, the Bible says where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's liberty.
Yeah.
So I believe God is for freedom and liberty. He's also for being at peace with all men, as long as it's as much as depends upon you.
Yeah.
I believe it's giving honor where honor's due and custom where custom is due. So I believe in paying your taxes. I believe in being honest with the government and paying your taxes.
Yeah.
I believe in since we are not in a kingdom here, we are in a representative republic. I believe in exercising your voice, your vote, and everything that you can do to further good government policy.
There you go.
And that would be lower taxes, less spending. So,
and I think that's a good point. So, because you could take render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and say, I'm going to wash my hands of this, and I'm going to pay exactly what they tell me to pay. And I think that you do run into, we're also called to, steward the kingdom also.
Right.
Yeah. And the kingdom not being like as a king, but having the King of Kings. Yeah. But we're also called to steward it, so you can't just stick your head in the sand.
No. Nope.
But paying taxes is something that we definitely do.
Yeah.
But then, I think that prayerfully seeking the Father when you're making decisions, when you're voting, I think that's what it comes down to.
Right.
I mean, I think you have to take that into consideration, and there are things that He knows that we don't.
Yeah.
And if your ears are open to hear, and you go by His promptings, it's gonna work out.
Yeah.
He does every single time. And so I think that becoming locked into maybe even like, I'll be honest, the specific party or whatever it would be, we need to be the party of the King, really. And when you make those decisions, because He knows yesterday, today, and tomorrow,
right.
And His goal is for prosperity for his people and for His kingdom, because then that actually brings glory back to Him,
right?
And then brings more people to Him. I don't know.
Yeah,
just a different thought on it.
How often do you think Christians actually pray about who they're just supposed to vote for?
I think a lot of people, including Christians, I think that they base who they vote upon either upon what their pastor or their current parishioners they're with do, or then also what they're seeing in media. And I've heard a really interesting thing. It was kind of funky or funny, but talking about television, right? Like we watch television. We don't watch television much anymore, but we use this. But the term television is to tell a vision. So you're actually using the vision of whatever is being told to you. You're using that vision instead of using that connection that we have with the Father to be able to look into the future, using the Holy Spirit's vision to look forward, and relying on these other sources of vision, and jumping on them.
Yeah. Well, I think you're supposed to be very discerning. I mean, I think it's 1 John. It's one of the Johns, but it talks about testing every spirit. I think it's 1 John.
Yeah.
We're supposed to test every spirit. Don't believe everything you... Basically, John's going, listen, don't believe everything you hear. Even though somebody comes in the name of Christian, don't believe that. Listen, test every spirit. And I do think that, Paul talks about we're supposed to be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. And that's kind of the two-sided thing, because I think some of the great harm that takes place in the political arena is naive Christians.
Yeah.
I think they do great harm. Mm-hmm. And it's not that you have to be mean. It's not that you have to, like you're saying, it's not that you have to go out there and be rebellious and not do this, but you should have wisdom. And if you are clueless as a Christian about the political arena, the Bible says to ask wisdom from God, and He will give it liberally. I think we need to take the civic and the public arena seriously as Christians, because you think about the effect that it has for our children, our grandchildren. I mean, just take public education for example. If you have godly Christians in position throughout a public school system or a public school, then you're more likely to have better education, better adjusted, better protected, happier kids, and just more positive outcome taking place because they're these gatekeepers are in the positions that they're supposed to be, and they're taking up that mantle of listening to the Lord. Otherwise, but if you don't care and it's no big deal and whoever, whatever, then Satan is happy to fill those positions.
Yeah.
The county council, the city council is happy to put people on there that have a radical left-wing Marxist agenda that don't regard God, and they just want to push some agenda. So they fill the vacuum that really the majority, the righteous majority, should be filling. So I think it's a call for all of us. We should be praying. We should be voting. We should be praying about who we're voting for. But also some folks that are in a position need to run for office.
Or maybe you're being called to be a public school teacher.
Right.
I mean, because that would be an area where you could have,
impact.
Major impact.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. I just think that's kind of like our call.
So on this theme of having our little time in the media, apparently, and mine was totally unexpected, but you must have planned for yours a little bit because you got your picture in the paper.
I didn't really mean to get the picture in the paper. No, I went to the public forum for it's really a public comment for the COPA agreement between Union Health and Terre Haute Regional Hospital.
Okay, and so for folks that aren't from this area and don't know, we have two major hospitals in Terre Haute, and I say major with Regional Hospital and Union Hospital. Jimmy works for Union. So does my daughter Hadessa. So does my son Daniel. Apparently, we're just all going to start working at Union.
The biggest employer in Vigo County.
Yeah.
It's not.
So they're very big. Yeah. They're and then Regional. So there's a little bit of competition there, but Regional really has just really struggled
over the last few years. Yeah,
and so there's been talk of an attempt for Union to purchase Regional, and that fell through the last legislative session.
It was supposed to come through at the end of the year. Okay. They decided to stall it, and we recently resubmitted what's called a COPA or a Certificate of Public Advantage, and because what it would cause, and this is the big negative word, is a monopoly in this area.
Right.
With Union already having 75% of the market share, I don't believe it's much of a monopoly, but when you use the term monopoly, you will take people from both sides and they'll be really upset about it.
Right.
But I think that one really thing to realize is that Terre Haute Regional Hospital is a hospital that's owned by a company called HCA, biggest company and one of the biggest in the United States that owns hospitals. And I thought it was really telling. Something the paper didn't put in the article was one of the speakers that got up was a CEO of a regional area, including New Hampshire and a couple other places, and then Terre Haute Regional Hospital. And he got up and spoke, specifically saying, over the last 5 years, we've been in Terre Haute Regional Hospital has been in really poor shape financially, and that was in the paper. But what he also said was, over the last 4 years, we have been looking for, and HCA is this big conglomerate, and they buy hospitals, they sell hospitals. They're always moving and shaking, right? And they have a central office in Nashville, Tennessee, that kind of runs all of them like this machine. But they've been noticing this dip in this hospital, and so over the last 4 years, they've been looking for suitors for people to buy, and he specifically said, we have had at least 5 suitors come in to purchase the hospital, and then he also said in his deposition, all of those, because of the market here, which there's not much for regional, all those suitors have dropped off except for one, which is Union Health. Now, as a Union Health employee, I might look like I'm somewhat compromised by saying, yeah, we should definitely do it. But my perspective is more from like the community side.
Right.
Because with these two hospitals, you really, between like battling over a few patients here and a few patients there, you're never in sync. And what we take care of inside of the 4 walls of the hospital is such a small aspect of really helping people in the community. because we can keep people alive. They can keep people alive. Put them on ventilators, do whatever, keep people alive. But then when you you discharge them, then the goal is that and like most of us, you want to maintain your health so you don't have to go back.
Right.
And right now, there's no we don't sync at all. Like, we have different electronic medical records. They could go there and get a treatment and immediately come to our place and get treatment. We never know what they had there. And so, but then one thing, once you become that sole hospital for an area, and this is the thing that makes me a little bit nervous about if the COPA goes through, is then, you know what, now community health is on your shoulders.
Right.
Because there's nobody else in town that you can say is causing these issues with, it can go from anything. And health, what we look at now is what's called social determinants of health. So this is lack of food, lack of shelter. This is people in the community that this is suicide rates. And you're like, well, how in heck can I affect a suicide rate when I'm taking care of people, keeping them alive in the hospital?
Right.
But as a health system, when you have one in the area, then you actually start to shoulder the burden of all of that.
Right.
And I feel like it's a really big burden. It's one thing that does kind of worry me a little bit, because then there's nobody else to say, well, they don't have this. But I'll say one thing about Tarrant Regional Hospital, that they've got some amazing people that work there, amazing physicians, and they have one thing in our community that nobody else has, even in the area, is 20 beds dedicated to behavioral health.
Oh, really?
And so 20 behavioral health beds. And so just let me give you an example. Currently, I think today, there were 30 people boarding in our ER, which means they're admitted. There's no rooms upstairs to go into, so they're in a bed in ER, boarding. Not any place anybody wants you to be or your loved one to be. We don't want to be there either. We don't have any room, though. We're out of room. I do know that in the last day, they transferred 13 people all over the state for one reason: behavioral health issues. So if you come to a hospital locally and you have a behavioral health issue, which there's a lot in this community, unfortunately, they're going to send you somewhere else. And you'll probably have to wait in the ER for 20 hours or 15, 20 hours before you go, which might exacerbate your issue.
Right.
But the one big positive about if Union Health would get the COPA is they would immediately expand that to then meet the needs of this area for behavioral health, because that is really, if that's not in control, then everything else trickles down. They end up with a lot of chronic disease and whatnot. And I think it's really interesting also, you saw the recent thing came out about Hamilton Center. Did you see that? So there was a law passed recently about it didn't target Hamilton Center, but it's obvious it did.
And this is something good that came out of the legislation.
Yeah, it was really good, and it put a target on Hamilton Center because Hamilton Center receives millions of dollars from the state to take care of behavioral health needs in our county,
and they do
in
a
our
terrible
area.
job.
And here's the whole thing: they receive that, and you ask anybody in Indianapolis who's making these decisions on the COPA, which makes no sense to me at all, but you ask them, and they're saying, we're sending so many millions of dollars in for behavioral health. The problem is it's going into Hamilton Center, and there's good people that work at Hamilton Center. There's people that have really good intentions there, but their leader is
terrible, and he's making $800,000 a year.
And so the recent legislation came through that said, of these mental health facilities, you can only make $400,000 in a non-clinical role. He's making $800,000-$900,000 a year in wages and bonuses.
And if they don't knock it down below that $400,000, you'll lose state funding.
So there's been some stuff that came through very recently about that. And so I think that hopefully we can wrap somewhat of our arms, and I'm not saying that the COPA is going to fix that, but it seems like we're finally shedding some light on this underlying issue in this area that
so Jimmy,
people need this
Let me
help.
ask you if it falls through, because it's still, Todd Rokita came out against it. Most of the local politicians are for this merger, but Todd Rokita came out against it for free market purposes, against the monopoly, that sort of thing. If this merger falls through again, what's the option? Doesn't regional shut down?
Yeah,
I don't see them sustaining this.
here's the thing. HCA is a massive machine. They sell hospitals. They buy hospitals. This is a business. This would be a total business decision for them.
Sure.
And I can't imagine any business person looking at this, even an HCA's. And the CEO didn't say we would sell, but the writing's on the wall that they would, because they're losing so much. And like, this interesting thing about HCA Hospital here in Vigo County is it's the only one in, like, there's not one in Kentucky.
Right.
There's not one in Illinois.
Near.
No, nobody's
Right.
near. And so why have these resources going here when we could buy something else that would be closer to other resources? So they
so you
could
think they
definitely
would shut down or sell? Because they're
I
trying to
think-
sell
no,
now.
Here's the thing. So if they shut down, they have to give 60 days. So they have to give a 60-day notice. So if this doesn't go through, they could give a 60-day notice, and then they could then shut their doors. There used to be 600. There's probably about 450 or 500 employees
Which would be out of a job.
out of a job. And then we are stuck behind, then, okay, is it up for sale? Can somebody buy it? And then this is the kicker with it.
And then technically, are we basically right where we started with? It's basically a merger, because then you could pick up all the same employees and doctors, right?
Hopefully.
Yeah.
But you'll lose some.
Sure.
But then they're going to be out of a job for so long with a little bit of limbo. Interesting enough, somebody from Regional spoke. A lady that works in the front desk. She's the greeter. She's amazing. She got up and spoke. And I thought, okay, she's going to be definitely against this. She said, we are tired of being jostled around.
Yeah.
Can you just make a decision? And I thought it was one of the most telling things, because it's been this or that and this or that. She's worked at Regional a long time. She's a great employee.
Yeah.
She's the person up front that's got to be happy and help people and do this stuff.
Yeah.
And she's just like, I'm sure she gets barraged every day. She's like, can you, at the state government, the State Department of Health, the
answer is no,
Can
Jimmy.
you just make a decision?
The answer is no.
And they can't, because that's what we're looking at now.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So, do we have a timeline when we'll know?
Yeah, the end of June. The end of June.
Are you? What do you think the odds are?
Probably 50-50.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really.
Yeah. Well, it's coming to a head, because if this merger doesn't happen, like we've said, I don't see them. I mean, HCA is not going to be interested in losing money forever. It's just that you're going to cut your losses. You're not going to do.
And they're
this.
worried about raising costs, and that's the whole thing about healthcare costs, inpatient. We do
So
not.
let me ask you this:
We do not manipulate those at all.
What happens if they're gone? Then you've got a monopoly anyway. So what's going to? You see what I mean? This is heading towards Union being the sole provider, primary, certainly, basically the only hospital that you can go to in Terre Haute. There's a hospital in Brazil. There's one. Sullivan's got
Sullivan's a community hospital, yeah.
There's one in Paris, Illinois.
But if you need a specialty,
right,
yeah.
But I mean, so it's still a monopoly. Do they come in and try to interfere with that? Does the state come in and interfere in that situation?
No.
Then why are they messing with this now? Because it's heading towards this.
Because it is considered a current hospital.
But it's not two behemoths that are joining. It's
No.
one that's dying.
But I think we're getting lumped in
Yeah.
to the Big Five hospitals,
Yeah.
and that's what Braun and the Republicans have a major target on, the Big Five hospitals in Indianapolis.
Yeah, and
The
I'm okay
IU.
with that.
And so they went, because
I understand
IU's
that.
been buying up all
Yeah,
these
they're
hospitals,
huge.
and so they're saying, we're not going to allow any more mergers. Union, you can't go over there. We're not
That's-
Indianapolis.
No, that has nothing to do.
And
with
we're
it.
not buying up a whole city's hospital or something. But IU has done a pretty, if you're looking at a business, amazing job of
Yeah.
just buying hospitals.
Yeah.
So amazing and not amazing also. But St. Vincent's, St. Francis community, those are just massive hospitals in Indianapolis that control a lot. And I think the Republicans they have a target on them, so they hear monopoly
Yeah.
in Vigo
Buzzwords.
County, and it
Right.
just
Yeah.
gets them fired up.
All right, so that's kind of a lot what we had on slate to talk about tonight. Jimmy, do you have anything else?
No, that was good. That was
Want to touch base on anything else? We're gonna have a guest. Hopefully, we've got this person scheduled. I'm pretty excited about it, but we'll see for the next podcast, and then we're going to continue to have as many guests on as possible.
Yeah.
I think it was also good just to take a few minutes and do our own thing. Like,
Yeah.
let
There's
people know
enough
we're still
going
here.
on. So
But I don't know. Everybody have a wonderful, wonderful summer. I think getting close to Memorial Day, race day. I'm hoping to get out there and do some golfing. Haven't done that yet.
Joey Chestnut, I posted on Facebook. Joey Chestnut
That's
is
right.
coming to the south. And so
Rural
this,
King.
I don't post much on Facebook, but I post about Joey Chestnut. So he is
He's the hot dog eater, right?
Yeah, he's a professional eater from Indianapolis. I didn't realize, but he is actually...
I didn't know he was from Indy.
Yeah, I've read it in the articles. He actually is supposed to try to break the popcorn eating record.
And where
at
else?
South Rural King.
Where else better to do it than Rural King?
I'm
They have
telling
the
you
best
what,
popcorn.
they have great popcorn. I'm going, no doubt.
When is this?
8 minutes. He needs to eat like 28 servings in 8 minutes. I don't know how you put popcorn on that fast, but
I don't either without dying.
it's going to be amazing. It's going to be, you're going to get there, you're going to watch it, and you're going to be like, yay! The 26th, so I think that's Memorial Day, right?
26th of May. Okay.
Is it Memorial Day?
South Rural King. What time? Do you have any idea?
I don't know. It's 8 minutes long. It's gonna be fast, but I guarantee though, when he does these competitions, there's gonna be a lot of media there.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
And it wasn't who's he connected to on YouTube?
Mr. Beast.
Mr. Beast.
Oh, he's got big connections. Yeah, everybody loves Joey Chestnut. Yeah,
that's
he's
cool.
hot dog eating. But I don't know how.
Maybe MC.
Can you
maybe
get?
MC Squared will do a live podcast from there,
We should.
or at least a live broadcast. We could totally do that on YouTube.
We could do something. Yeah, real quick.
He'd
while
be
we're
like,
there.
no other media.
I mean, he can't soak the popcorn in like water like he does the hot dog buns. I don't know how
does
you
he
get
do
it
that
down.
in the hot dog?
Oh
buns?
yeah, you never seen they soak the buns in water and they slurp them down, and then he moves his body to get him to go down. It's 8 minutes of pure.
Gluttony.
Oh, it's amazing! I love it. I love it. I think it's exciting. There's little things in life that I enjoy. I enjoy watching those eating competitions.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, folks, please send in your questions and your complaints to Jimmy.
Yes.
Jimmy, you got an email?
Yeah, the MC Square Podcast at gmail.com. The MC Square Podcast at gmail.com is our email. And then we're also on Instagram or Facebook.
We are on
Just type in-
Instagram. We don't have a Facebook.
MC Square Podcast on any of those social media, and you'll be able to find us and follow us. We appreciate that. And we will see you next time.
See ya.